Could you go for a year without buying fabric? Or even a couple of months? Why would you even want to try? I spoke to Lise Bauer, creator of the Last Sewist Standing challenge, which is the ultimate stash busting challenge. And you'll find out shortly exactly what Last Sewist Standing could do for you. This episode is the second in the Fabric Stash mini-series. In it, Lisa and I discuss shopping habits and motivations, perfectionism, habit building, resourcefulness, community, accountability, and so much more. Plus, you need to hear how Lisa's own challenge went this year. As you hear towards the end of the episode, I was shocked. So stick around a couple of minutes for that. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 15 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge, Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis and the way that my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, gorgeous listener. How are you doing today? Are you surviving January so far? I'm doing okay. I am so happy to be back putting out episodes for you and communicating with you all via Instagram and the newsletter. By the way, have you signed up for the free weekly Check Your Thread newsletter yet, or are you missing out? The newsletters are always brief, but always fun. In each of them, I share something about that week's episode, and I share one more sewing and sustainability related thing that I think you'll be interested in. That's it. Sounds good now? If you haven't already, do sign up to the newsletter by going to checkyourthread.com and scrolling to the bottom of the homepage. Anyways, I'm going to blast through the intro today because this episode is long. So I'll skip the sewing updates and the sustainability wins and fails this week and go straight to thanking some lovely people. Huge thanks this week to Jess, Sandra, Julie, Sarah, Kate, Claire, Alicia, Wilma and Lisa Ray for signing up to support the podcast via Patreon. And thank you to existing patrons Louise, Caro, Kim and Anne for upping the amount of their support. They all kindly responded to what I had to share last week. So in last week's intro, I explained that finances are super tight and soon I might have to go out and do some more paid work elsewhere, which will probably have an effect on my ability to put out weekly episodes. I really don't want that to happen, and clearly neither do these amazing people because they've stepped up to help out. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It feels so good to know that this podcast is important to you. But let's crack on with what we're here for, and that is Lisa. As I say, this is a long one, but please do give it your ears in its entirety, even if that has to be in instalments. I edited and re-edited this one in an attempt to cut it down to under an hour. But I just couldn't do it. It's all so relatable, rallying, shocking and hilarious. I don't think I've ever laughed as much whilst listening back during the editing process, to be honest. Lisa is so witty, and I think that some of my genuine responses to what she shares may also make you giggle. Right, I should stop talking now so you can get on with it. Please take care of yourself, your loved ones, and the wider global community where possible. Sign up to the free newsletter if you haven't already, and enjoy! This is exciting. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Check Your Thread.
Thank you very much. I am very honored to be invited.
Right. So I know who you are, but for everyone else, can you tell us who you are, where you are, and what fills your days?
Yes. So my name is Lise. My handle on Instagram is Miss Tashley. So yeah, where am I? I'm in Switzerland, in Basel. And, you know, the viewers can't see this, but you may be able to see this. Behind me, when you look out the window, you can see Switzerland. If I would angle you a little bit that way, you can see France.
Oh.
And if I turn you around, which I can actually do, and you look at that hill, that is Germany.
What?
So yeah, we're in a really cool spot here that's like nestled between the three countries. And I think that really, makes this area really special.
That is very, very cool. I didn't realise that. So you could be like, we're just going to go and pop to France this weekend. And it's like, oh, I've just walked down the street.
Even for less than that. So when we go to the swimming pool, obviously not now, We like to go to the one that's in Germany, and it's literally a 10-minute bike ride that way.
That's so funny. Right, and what fills your days? What do you get up to?
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't work.
No, you don't do paid work. That's not the
Yes, I
same.
don't do paid work, exactly. So yeah, they're not that little anymore, and I get every morning to myself. And they go to school at 8 until when they come back for lunch at noon. So yeah, that's a particular thing about the Swiss school system. They come home for lunch, which,
Right.
You can argue is not very, friendly towards specifically women in the workforce. But I have the mornings to myself. And yeah, when I'm not doing housework, I do try to sew when I can. And yeah, it's a luxury position for sure to be in, to not think like, okay, what do I need to do to bring in money? But like, what do I actually want to do to, fill my day? So yeah, whenever I'm done with the chores and the running around, etc., it's sewing. And yeah, sometimes it's sewing when none of the other things are done.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
That
it has to
happens
be that
too.
because there's always something else that you could be doing, isn't there? There's always something that needs cleaning or sorting out or getting or.
Right, exactly. So I honestly don't know how people do it that do have a job, because they still do have the house chores, the errands, all of that. So yeah, I do feel very lucky that I get to, do those things or ignore them and still have time to, mostly on most days get to, at least do a little bit something for myself, which is usually sewing or sewing related.
Yeah. So how long has sewing been part of your life then?
Um, Basically forever. I'm really lucky in that way too, that I basically come from a family of crafters. There's lots of very skilled seamstresses. They were mostly women that were, my influences.
Right, okay. So we have to get into it. We have to get into it. We need to talk about Last Sewist Standing because the podcast listeners will have heard me mention it a billion times in the intros over the last, 8, 9 months or however long it's been at this point. Right. For those who don't know, if there's anyone, what is Last Sewist Standing? Like, what's the premise and when and why did you start it?
Okay. So what is Last Sewist Standing? It is a no buy challenge. You are not allowed to buy any fabric while you're in this challenge. It always or usually starts on or around February 14th, and it runs until the 31st of December of that same year. At least that's the case this year. There was a bit of evolution to get there. There are different divisions you can run in. Now, everybody starts in the heavyweight category. In that category, you're not allowed to buy anything sewing related at all. So that means no fabric, of course, but also no notions, no elastic, no lining fabric, no patterns. The only thing you are allowed to buy are thread, because we feel like, otherwise you have to stop sewing at some point.
Yeah, or use really unsuitable colours and it really doesn't look good in your garment.
Yeah. And the other thing is needles, sewing machine needles, because we feel like that is something you're using up and it would just basically be unsafe.
Yeah.
If you can't replace that. And then the other thing is also like, I don't know, if your scissors break or your machine breaks, you can get repairs. But you're not allowed to buy anything new. So you can't just go out and buy a new fancy machine or get some like metallic thread because you feel like it, just like the normal stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the heavyweight category. Eventually, I think that was already in the first year of the challenge, we added a second category, lightweight category. First, it was just going to be nothing. You can't buy anything at all. And a lot of people were like, well, we don't have crazy stashes like you. We don't have like unlimited elastic supply, button supply, patterns. We may want to use up our fabric stashes, but if we can't buy anything at all, we're going to be severely limited. So that's why we created the lightweight category. So if you're stuck and you still have fabric, but you may not have the right pattern for it, or you're missing some elastic or a button, Then you drop into the lightweight category. You can get what's needed. We hope you don't go overboard, but you're allowed to shop freely in that category. And then lastly, we added the independent category. And that is either for people that drop out but want to come back and keep going and sort of want to have it official, or it's for latecomers that show up, on the 20th of February or 20th of April. Like, we don't turn anyone away. Like, if you want to join, you can join, and it's going to be in the independent category, but you're still participating in spirit, sort of.
That's really nice. I really like that. Yeah, because, that's really inclusive.
That sort of does also, touch on another, sort of an important part of this challenge. It's really more of a support group. And, it's a challenge, but it's not a challenge where you have to do anything. On the contrary, you have to not do something. And it's not one of these challenges where you have to, I have to make a lot of stuff. You don't have to show your Last Sewist Standing makes if you don't want to show them. I mean, theoretically, you can just not sew and,
Still be in.
Still be in. Exactly. So it's important that everybody, feels like they can participate, even if they don't have giant pattern stashes, and that even if they drop out because they don't have same, fabric stashes, they can still participate sort of in spirit and have that accountability of not going, completely crazy.
Yeah, brilliant. So how many years has this been running now?
This is the 3rd year that we're doing it.
Right. So why did you come up with it?
Well, I think this almost touches on the topic that you wanted to, get into of stashes and why do we have stashes and how does that happen?
Yes. Yeah.
So most of my fabric stash, I would say, 70% or more of it was accumulated in the first year of the pandemic.
Oh.
So I am one of those that shops when they're stressed out. And fabric, for some reason, gave me so much peace and comfort of knowing that never mind what happens in the world, I will be fine with my fabric.
I can wrap myself in fabric. I'll be safe.
So at the end of that year, so that was about December 2020, I believe, I was like, no, this is not okay. I live in an apartment with 3 people. We have a lot of stuff. And my fabric is completely taking everything over. And I told myself I'm on a fabric ban. And that lasted, I would say 5-6 days.
Oh, no.
And I was already, but I need this one thing. I really just need this one thing. And And then I was like, okay, New Year's resolution, no more fabric. And I think I went 2 or 3 weeks and already I was buying something again. Because there was a very good reason, something didn't match quite perfectly or the color wasn't just right. So that's my second problem. I want it just so, and I want to be very particular, if I'm going to sew, I want it to be nice, So at that point, I had this little sewing group going where we were talking on Zoom once a week and sewing or not sewing and just chatting with each other. And I asked the 3 of them to just join me in not buying fabric. If we do it together, I think I can do it, And they were all like, yeah, okay, sure, let's do it. But I felt like both their motivation and also their stashes were, mediocre at best. They were, okay, let's go along with it. We really do need to help Lisa. She, clearly has a problem here. But they didn't need it. That's basically it. But they were going to do it with me. So it became clear I need to have more people on board. They're going to drop out sooner or later because they just don't have that much fabric. And at that point, I made a public call out on Instagram, to all my closest sewing friends, basically. And I was like, hey, do you want to join me? I want other people that will basically just look and see, are you buying fabric, Lise? It was mostly for me. I wanted them to hold me accountable. And in return, I would hold them accountable, But yeah, this was not some kind of thing that I did like for the community, for sustainability, for taking better care of our resources on this planet. This was all like stuff that just came out of it naturally. And I was almost surprised by after. It was a very like self-centered, like, come on, people, help me, you know. But unsurprisingly, there were a lot of people with the same problem.
Yeah.
And in the first year, we were just over 50 participants.
Right.
So we thought that was amazing. And that first year was really fun. We worked out sort of the rules and regulations. It was even more unorganized than it is now. But it was really fun. It kind of petered out towards the end. I don't even think we had anyone that made it all year long.
Right.
Then the second year, it got a little bit more organized. We had more participants. I think it was like around 68 that year. So not a huge number, but a bit more because, you know, people came back to do it again. They brought a couple of friends along.
I was going to say, was a lot of the people from the second one from the first one?
Yes. Most people came back for a second round. I would say in the first year also, most people didn't go as long as they tend to go now. I feel like everybody got a bit more hardcore. So that was the second year. We worked out sort of the kinks with the divisions. It didn't quite peter out as much as the first year. We had sort of a roundup of who's still around at the end. And there were 5 sewists still standing at the end of that year. I'm not even sure which category. But, you know, they were all winners. For me, Shams is the unofficial winner because she was just so inspiring. She was one of the 5 that was still standing at the end. And she was just so inspiring and, you know, forthcoming with her, not advice, because it never sounds like advice from her, with her inspiration and thoughts on the topic, etc. Like she is very active in the way that she communicates, but it's never preachy. It's like, you know, this is how I do it. And I think a lot of second year. So in the first year, you can cut all of this. In the first year, Vilma was more our inspiration. She was either standing the longest or till the end. I don't quite remember. So that was the winner the first year. And she was just like our beacon, you know, sort of this example. I don't pretend to be, this, you know, wisdom, you know, I can't bring any like light to people that like are looking for like the guru who will like guide them through this. Because I'm unorganized, I'm very like fallible, and that's why, you know, this challenge even exists in the first place. So I love to like latch on to people that have figured out how to do this, how to navigate the temptations.
Yeah, because that's what you were looking for in the beginning, wasn't it?
Exactly. And I think in the end, we're all having fun together, you know, just how far did you get? What caused the downfall? But in the end, we do want to form better habits and, you know, actually learn how to, you know, resist those temptations, etc. So, I think the community aspect and having these people participating and sharing what they're doing, what they're getting out of it, that has been like one of the best parts of the challenge and like most surprising. And that really came out in the second year. And then the third year, you heard about the challenge.
I did, from Shams.
And then the thing that happened, then I call, you know, the Zoe effect. So in the third year, we went from 52 and then 68 participants. We went to 265 participants.
Cool.
But it blew up basically. And, you know, blow up. I know there's, you know, but in my small corner of the internet, I was like, oh my gosh, it's huge now. And at the beginning, I was like, ooh, this is too big. This is too much responsibility. I can't connect with all these people. I can't encourage all of them. I can't, you know, be there for them when they're tempted and need some support.
But that's what the community is about, isn't it? It's not all on you.
And I think that was a bit more of the Zoe effect. It forced me from letting go that I have to be more organized, which I never was, to like, this is how it is. This is how we run the challenge. And we count on people reaching out to each other and forming those connections, by themselves without any guidance. And it's harder now. It used to be easier with the hashtags on Instagram. Now that that's not really a thing anymore, it's a little bit harder.
Yeah,
But
it's much harder to find out the most recent posts, isn't it? So you can't say, oh, how's
yeah.
so-and-so getting on? Or
Yeah, but there too, instead of being like upset that that doesn't really work anymore, you're just going to work with it and sort of go with it. So, anyone who wants to connect with other challenge participants can go to my most recent post, which, there's never a lot of those. Go through the comments, see who's actually still in or, doing things. Go check out their grid and their posts and yeah, just connect organically. And I know that for me, but also other participants, like real friendships have come out of the challenge. So I think that's another, one of those surprising aspects, which I never expected, going into it.
absolutely. So let's talk about the time frame, because it is a long challenge, isn't it? This is not like some little month here, week there. This isn't even a season. This almost goes for a full year. In fact, I made the mistake of thinking it was for a full year, but we'll get onto that later. Why did you choose to create a challenge that goes on for so long, and what are the benefits or drawbacks of that?
So, as you may, have gathered until now, not a lot of thought went into the challenge before I made it. It just kind of developed. So initially, there was going to be no end.
Oh, right.
It was just going to be a never-ending Last Sewist Standing. Who can go on the longest?
That's really fun, actually.
And so, yeah, I mean, the first year did kind of go like that. Wilma was Vladivos, I think, is her handle, if anyone wants to look her up. She stood the longest, I'm pretty sure. And then we restarted it for the second year. But by the end of the second year, there were 5 sewists still standing. And then we were, the others want to come back in, and participate again. And that's why, at that point, we decided, okay, let's just wrap it up for this year and then start it again. And I think, that's a good way, to do it. Now, a lot of people, it's just not feasible for them to do 1 year, or almost 1 year, no fabric ban, because they would have to stop sewing or start begging for fabric. It was never the idea actually that everybody should have the goal even to stand until the end. It really depends on your own goals and your own stash, on your own level of how much of a problem do I have here? What do I actually want to achieve, And then I think only in the second year did with Shams, it was more the idea of sustainability that came in, because Shams has a lot of fabric, but she still, has needs here and there for things that she may not have in her stash. And she really brought in this whole let's just think about when we do want fabrics, other ways of, not getting new fabrics, maybe using more fabrics that already exist when we do go back to buying fabric. And really before that, it was more oh, I'm out, I'm going fabric shopping,
Yeah.
So that all came more in the second year. And I think in the third year, it was almost more established that some people with smaller stashes are going to join. And for them, the goal is more, how can I just not ever buy new fabric again? Just thinking more of and if I am going to buy new stuff, where does it come from? And what is it made of? And I think, that was more again, something that got added, and we're oh yeah, maybe now that we're not buying fabric, let's think a bit about what is all of this that we are storing in our homes? Where does it come from? And do we want to go back to purchasing the way we did before, even if our cupboards are, less full? And so, these are almost accidental consequences, but also not, because, people like Shams and Vilma and others have really, given their input and thought. So it's not like it comes from nowhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I love that. I love, I mean, for challenges to thrive and have a use, they do have to kind of evolve, and they can be different things for different people, can't they? That's certainly something that I found with Me Made May. Like, you can create a framework, but everyone is different. Everyone's goals are different. Everyone's thoughts and priorities are different, and a successful challenge incorporates that for different people, you know. And so if it is an opportunity for some people to really like take a pause, think about what they're consuming and why, that's going to look different for different people. Those answers are never going to be the same. So it's so great that you've created this space for people. And yeah, it really is like brain space that you're giving by putting a pause on. Can just like, oh, what can I buy next? What's my next plan? You're like, okay, just breathe, think. And yeah, and that thought will then be different for different people. So that's lovely that you've created that kind of space for everyone.
Oh, thanks so much. And yeah, sometimes I really feel a lot of the imposter syndrome, because it's like, I didn't go out to, give this gift to the community. I feel like the community has almost, given me this gift. I started it, but it became what it is through all participants. Not just, that we're doing it together, the actual rules, the divisions, what it entails. And I think that also how long do you want to join for? Do you want to stay in for a month? Do you want to do it all year? That needs to be, sort of a personal decision that everyone thinks about at the beginning of the challenge. What do I want to get out of this? You know?
But I think that I love the way that you bring so much humor into it in your posts, and it makes it light, like it's something that we're all doing, and some people are taking it more seriously than others. Some people are more committed probably from the beginning. Some people get more committed probably as it goes on. But the humor that you bring, it's not like, if you fail, if you drop out, you are dead to me. You are awful. You don't take that in any way. You bring so much joy and lightness to it that those of us who are still in it are like still having fun, still enjoying it. But those that are out, you're not like, oh, you've lost, you're terrible, you know. Because there's nothing stopping people then to like, do you know, I actually got something from that. Yeah, I didn't complete the year, but let's have another go next year, and let's see if I can get further this time. And
yeah, I completely agree. First of all, again, the imposter syndrome. I'm not this beacon of wisdom. My stash is a testimony to my faults in that category. So I would feel horrible coming, with the wagging finger and preaching at people. So that is the main reason. And the other thing is, I think there are gurus out there which will show you the light in many ways of self-improvement. I am not that, but I can have fun with you and do it with you. And that just feels a lot more authentic to me.
Yeah. And that you've made a really good point. Like the whole reason, like those of us are participating, it's not that we're doing so well. It's like we spent a lot of money on fabric in our past. That's the reality. That's why we got ourselves into this situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us fall into that category. With the last year, there are some which really, sometimes I ask myself, do you need to join? You have this 2 very tidy drawers of fabric. You seem okay, but they want the challenge of, I want to use these fabrics before I move on.
Yeah.
So the goals, they really do vary. But I think most of us are, the shelves or cupboards are bursting at the seam, and we actually need to do better.
Yeah.
So, and again, when someone drops out, I think, you can see that from the feedback. Most of them feel like they got something out of it. Most of them don't revert to their previous shopping habits. Most of them continue to be at least more deliberate in their fabric choices. They usually go in knowing what they want to do, as opposed to just, oh, there's a sale or there's a new fabric collection. I need to have it.
Yeah.
Which, I'm definitely guilty of that in the past. So,
Because you put up a really good post recently, didn't you? It's kind of like a check-in post. And the comments were so interesting. There were so many people that even if they had dropped out, they were like, I dropped out, but I've bought 2 pieces since then, rather than I bought 2 cupboards worth, or I did 2 massive hauls, or Black Friday came and I just went mental. Or
those comments made me so happy, So maybe I can apologize at this point. I am the worst at Instagramming. I take forever to reply to things. I do it wrong too. You're supposed to just give quick answers, move along, but I like to actually write back and engage with the person. I can reply to 2, 3 people at most, and I can't do more because it stops being authentic.
Yeah.
Then I am just saying the same thing to everyone. I need to step away and come back. And I like to go check out what that person has posted recently, etc. So, if I may, apologies to everyone whose comment I have not replied to yet. I'll get there. But reading through those comments, it just warmed my heart. I was laughing. I was moved because, as you say, so many people have actually changed their buying habits. And I think that's huge. I think, really changing your habits long term is something you can use and benefit from in other aspects of your life as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe translates to other shopping habits or just other habits that you would like to, change, which, may be different for everyone. Like, I'm not saying, everyone has a shopping problem that has a stash problem. But I just think it's a real testimony of growth, like across the board with so many people that, I was really moved by that. And then the others are just hilarious because we definitely also have those that just fell into a ditch, did the massive fabric hauls after dropping out. But again, I think it's good to not come at that from a point of judgment, but like, yes, we do that. That's why most of us ended up with the stashes. But if we want to change that and we need to decide that for ourselves, then we now have a community that can do that with us or help us.
We're here. We'll do it again in February. If you want to sign back up.
Exactly.
Oh, awesome. So why do you think that so many of us who are fortunate enough to have the resource to do so, why it is so easy for some of us to accumulate fabric?
I actually thought, very naively, most of us are like me. We are tempted by sales and we are tempted by, new fabric collections that we see on Instagram or something like that. But I found out there are so many reasons. I mean, not surprisingly, they come from different backgrounds. They have, different personalities. I can tell you best about my reasons because I feel if I, broadly speak about this, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you about my reasons.
Go on, tell me.
I do know that, a lot of other people have the same issues as me. So for me, one big one is the perfectionism that I need to also work on. It really is a problem. But I need to have my thread and my zipper and my cuffs and everything matching just so. Yes, I can color block and, but it needs to be intentional. I want everything perfect. And that's definitely a problem because, if you are buying a pattern or fabric and then you see it's not perfect for each other, actually this fabric should be a bit drapier. I mean, it would work, but it's not perfect. Then I can't just do it. I need to go and get that perfect thing to make it. So that's one problem. And the solution is pretty obvious. Just stop. Like it's really not that big of a deal. And a lot of times no one but yourself actually cares about those details and actually a little bit like less, being less particular in those ways can make things so much more interesting. The projects, the results, so much more creative. So I think that's a great thing about this challenge. If you stick it through and you don't, give in to temptations, you will have to get to the point where like, okay, maybe I'm going to add a contrast zipper instead of, ordering the perfectly matching one. Or maybe instead of doing this closure, which I envisioned, I'll think of a different way, do buttons instead, or I don't know. So I think it forces those of us that always have to go and, buy the perfect thing to think, but do I have something that I could use instead? So I think that's pretty useful. The other bad shopping habit I have, and it's not just related to fabric, is shopping for the gratification of it. So either when I'm stressed or feeling down, that, I'll go and buy something, get that dopamine hit. And it used to not be fabric. And that's what I'm saying. It's like a more general problem. It used to be, oh, I'm doing some, maybe house improvements. I'll get something for that. I don't know. I can't think of anything. There's a birthday coming up. Let's start, buying decorations for that or something. There's always a reason and like a project in mind. It's not just mad shopping, but in the end, it's too much. It's too much shopping. And this is, I'm thinking like years back. This is before I, got to the point of like, maybe I shouldn't contribute so much to overconsumption and everything. And then in the years when I started sewing or sewing more as the kids got older, I started sewing more. All that shopping, it was just like going towards fabric. It's just like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit stressed. I think a bit of fabric would make me feel better. And it really did. And so I think that's something where maybe, we need to get a psychologist on board for us or something.
Okay,
because, that's definitely, something which I know people do that. I don't know exactly why. There's stuff you can read about that. Vilma in the first year had a very interesting, little essay she wrote about, the reasons we do this. But again, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you if there's a group that is around you, supporting you, you'll stop and think about that. And another good thing to combat that, instead of just saying, oh, just stop it, which isn't very helpful, is if you do want to make a purchase, put it on a list, let it sit there and think about it. And this doesn't just apply to fabric shopping. Vilma in the first year noticed, this is the danger of the challenge, that if you stop buying fabric, you might start buying other things again.
Oh, because you still have the same impulse.
Yeah. And I heard that this year from a few participants as well. One started buying shoes.
Oh.
And she was like, well, I do need shoes. My, shoe collection is very dire. But, if we're honest, sometimes it's not about the project or the shoe collection. It's about just that, satisfaction of shopping. And I think putting it on a list is a real way, a tangible way to okay, what do I do with this urge? Put it on a list, think about, and then do something else. Do something which feels good to you, which, maybe will give you the satisfaction that you would have gotten from shopping, but don't shop because,
I think as well, it's very common, and I'm certainly, I don't want to say guilty because that's not the right word, but certainly this is something that applies to me, is that I don't have that much time to sew, and to buy a few pieces of fabric maybe in one sitting, might get round to one of them, but then something else has caught my eye before those other things that I had a good plan for have not been used, and they're still sitting there. And that's really something that I wanted to get from it. It's just to actually make some of those things. They're lovely things, lovely fabric. I've got a plan for them. I knew how much to buy, but I just haven't had the time to do that, and the other mending and the scrap busting and the this and then this, and so and so's now needs new pajamas, and so and so's got something for school. And I think that's an easy way to accumulate fabric.
I think that's the other 30% of my stash. Right. 70% is stress shopping during COVID, and the other 30% is maybe projects unrealized. I had a plan, just like you said, but then it didn't happen. And maybe it's still a good plan, but now I have so many other plans that are sitting in front of that plan.
And the season has moved on, and your wardrobe requirements have shifted slightly. Like something else got worn out, and it's more important to, refill that need. And then the fabric's still there. The fabric you bought is still there.
And many participants have mentioned that then by the time you get to them, suddenly you realize, I am still excited about this project. And they're so happy that suddenly they're freed from being tempted, to get new things. Now they're looking at, what do I actually have? And it's almost like reconnecting with your past, self. Like, oh, I had this plan. This was a lovely plan. But the risk also, if you wait too long, if you don't participate in this challenge, is that maybe, and some have given me that feedback, they are not excited about those fabrics anymore. Or their kids have grown up and they're not into the princess prints anymore. So I think that does, it's good to have a bit of urgency. Like those projects may still be good now, but we might outgrow them at some point. So yeah, let's get to them while we're still excited about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've been thinking about this a lot recently. This episode is part of a mini series that I'm creating about fabric stashes, and I don't want people to think that owning fabric is terrible, or having fabric is some way wrong or unsustainable. We are makers. We are inherently makers. We need stuff to make with. Having a beautiful bit of fabric that you love, that is suitable for your project, that will be worn when you've finished it, or hopefully if the project went well, that's not in and of itself a bad thing. And we do need materials to make with. But I think where the problem lies is when it starts to accumulate and there is negative feelings that can bring. Like some people do feel a sense of guilt or embarrassment or shame around having all this stuff. And I don't think that is necessarily healthy. I don't think that's necessary to have those feelings. But there is also a sustainability element to that. It's like those resources are sitting there. Those resources are not fulfilling their use, and if you go out and buy more, that is more need for fossil fuels, for virgin resources, for damage to be created in the fibre and fabric production and transportation and processing and everything. So we do have a responsibility both to ourselves as makers, but also to ourselves as participants in this world, because everything we do has an impact. But so I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but what I was saying is that
if I may connect to that tangent quickly, not only do we have these resources sitting here that were made from, new materials, etc., they may be deteriorating.
Good point.
So not only may we outgrow them in taste, style, etc., I'm pretty sure we don't all have the perfect humidity level and, moth protection, etc. I hear this a lot from knitters too. I am also a knitter, and we're not going to talk about the yarn stash today, but it is very important there. Especially, I take even better care of my yarn that you store it correctly. And at some point, I realized if I don't use this stuff, it may not wait there forever for me to get around to. Never mind the princess prints. Some things that I have already have UV damage, because I had it folded somewhere on a shelf and, along the side, it got sun bleached. That is something you can work around. But some of us have stashes, and I know I'm not the only one, where fabric gets forgotten. Yeah. And I think that is
a lot of people live in houses where, and I've certainly lived in houses where there's been damp issues. And some of my fabric has ended up being mouldy. Sometimes you can wash it out. Sometimes you can't. It still has that musty smell even after it's been through the wash. So yeah, it's a resource that doesn't have an endless life. You're right.
So I think that's another added factor. Some of us feel that guilt and almost like a weight when the stash is too big. They don't feel inspired by it anymore. They feel weighed down by it. And I think that's also important for those people to then, almost have like a cleansing. Unfortunately, some of us, and me included, do not feel that guilt. And they just love their stashes. And I feel like a painter with my palette. These are my colors. If I am inspired at 11 p.m., I can go and grab the things that I probably want right now because, I have curated my stash. I didn't just buy things willy-nilly. I had a plan in mind at some point, And so, I think for those of us, it's important to be like, okay, you had a plan. You have this curated, palette of colors or whatever. Use those tools. Picasso also didn't have warehouses of paint. But he did have a good palette, I'm guessing, to work with. So, to give ourselves that freedom, like we create, we'll need materials for that. But there's a limit to what we actually need. And maybe, for some of us, it is necessary to think about how we go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is always more fabric. You don't have to have it all, keep it all, Because there's more, there'll be more. And yeah, maybe that particular one in that particular shop, that will run out. That is true. But as somebody who works in a fabric shop, I can attest that there will always be something else beautiful that you'll feel just as passionately about when you've got the money or the time or the space in your stash or whatever. There will always be something else that will catch your eye and your heart. But yeah, but I think going back to what I was saying before, like, I don't think that necessarily having resources to sew with is a bad thing. That's a necessary thing as makers. We are humans, humans are makers. Some people feel that pull more strongly than others. But yeah, I think having a stash that there is some sense of movement and energy in it. Like, some comes in, some goes out, some comes in, some goes out. And it is, yeah, as you say, it's like a beautiful palette that you can dip into. You can occasionally, like when you get it to a point where you feel comfortable, you can then add to occasionally. And there is this rotation. It's not just this lump that is slowly growing and growing, and almost the point you want to kind of like just like not really look at it and then just go and buy another pretty thing and use that. Because I know, for example, there was a woman that used to teach sewing classes, and she was a quilter, and she was like, she was always buying some more bits of quilting cotton. And she was like, oh, I've probably got some of this, but it's there, and I just can't be bothered. And it's like, what? Why? Yeah, that's such a waste of money. And she just she didn't have the motivation to actually dig through what she had. And I think that's what are you wasting your money for? You've already probably got a meter of that, or something incredibly similar.
That is a real problem and such a waste, right? You're buying something that you may already have. I can completely relate to that because I, at some point, had my guest bed covered in fabric because it couldn't fit in the cupboard anymore. And I knew I had a jeans fabric way back there, but it was under piles and piles. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to need jeans fabric again anyways. I'm just going to get another couple of meters. So I know exactly what she's talking about. And it is horrible. I mean, that is not sustainable at all.
This is why you're so the right person to host this challenge. Nobody
I understand all the fall downs.
Nobody wants this kind of holier than thou guru telling them what they should and shouldn't do. They need somebody who's like, I get it. I've done that. I'm doing it now. I'm trying to crawl my way out of it.
And I also think it shouldn't just be like, oh, yes, it's so funny how horrible our habits are. Let's celebrate that. So I do think we need to be like, okay, yes, we have done these things and are maybe still doing it. But now what do we do? So for me, what helped was tidying my stuff up, getting a good space for them, and, getting that stuff onto shelves. I also have an online inventory. I started before there were apps for this. So I actually keep all of my stuff in the notes program that I'm using.
Yeah.
Which is super clunky and, sort of old school. But so, yeah, I got things organized. And I think that was a big step for me, in addition to the challenge, is having my fabric accessible, knowing what I have, having it nicely folded or rolled so that it's fun for me to shop my fabrics, and it's also possible for me to shop my fabric because it's not buried, somewhere.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like a massive burden to even find what you wanted to use for the next project.
Right.
Okay, so let's just touch on this year's challenge. So you said that there was did you say 265 people that signed up this February? Or February 2023?
So there were about 265 regular signups by February 14th, or in the next few days that swore on their sewist honor that they had not bought anything. And then after the challenge after it officially started, we had 3 more join in the independent category, like right off the bat. And yeah, right at the beginning already, I was so overwhelmed.
Oh, bless you.
I was signing everyone up.
Oh, you were like, damn it, Zoe, stop mentioning on your podcast. Stop it.
Every time you mentioned it, I was happy and felt honored. But I was like, oh my God, so many people are writing to me. I can't keep up. But yeah, I got through it. I eventually signed everyone up. Everyone got a number. We then had the idea that everybody needed a horse name. That was new this year. So then I needed to add another column in my chart, adding all the horse names. Then we did the horse parades, and I started using different pictures for the horses. So I had to add a column with what pictures I use for the horses to keep it consistent. So yeah, it took a bit, a life of its own, there.
And when you would say, and I had to find the right picture, you didn't have to. I promise you didn't have to.
Be honest, did it make the challenge better or not?
Well, that's for you to say.
No, I really, of course, you're so right. It doesn't need any of these things. It doesn't need all the engagement. It doesn't need, the silly soundtracks and, GIFs, etc.
Oh, but no, it did need those. It did need those.
Yeah.
It did need the little animations.
It does add to sort of this, I don't know, lightheartedness to it. And that's what I meant at the beginning of our conversation. This is serious. This is very serious. But it's also it's fun, and it's just let's just have some fun together.
No one wants to participate in something that's really preachy.
Yeah, and just boring. Check in. Okay, you're still in. Wow. Have a party. Celebrate it a little bit.
Have a party. Have some dancing ponies.
Exactly.
And let's not even get into the babies.
Exactly. And, all the rumors going around. And so, yeah, the first half year or so, I think, was more active. We did more pony parades. We did some funerals for ponies that passed when people dropped out. And, it petered out because that's another benefit of a long challenge. You don't have to check in every day. We all have lives, not all of us, me, not definitely not, but also the others. Not everybody is on social media every day, and I welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. I shouldn't be, but I am.
Well, it's kind of part of, your job, or your extra jobs. You wear many hats, right? So you have to. But I think those challenges that almost force us to check in all the time, to be there all the time, to be connected on social media, they can be fun, but they can also be a huge time sink.
Yeah. And also that becomes the challenge in and of itself, doesn't it? That becomes the challenge. It's no, the challenge isn't to do an update on Instagram every day. The challenge is to not buy the fabric and do some sewing. That's the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was most of the year. I think most people went longer this year than ever before, those that had participated before.
Do you think that was related to the fact that there was more people? Do you think it was oh, okay, well, we're doing this, are we?
I wonder if it was just because it's a much larger group. Just percentage-wise, there were more people still staying in. And that maybe in turn motivated the other people when they said, oh, wait, there's still a lot of people in. I guess I should also push myself a little bit further,
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of this is it's almost like influencing itself. A lot of people are there doing it, so the ones doing it want to do even better,
Yeah.
They're just motivated by
Which
that.
is once again why you started it, because you knew those original people that you knew in your little Zoom group, they weren't going to go the distance, and you needed those people that were like, come on, I'm still in.
Exactly. So to circle back to the stats.
At time of recording, we are about 3 weeks away from the end. But the episode itself is going to be going out when it's finished. So we don't have final stats yet. But with what we know now.
We don't even have current stats because our last check-in was on the 2nd of November.
Okay.
So those are the most recent numbers that I can report. But it's still interesting because I've never actually added them up. I just did that last night in preparation of our talk. Again, this is a long haul challenge. Nothing goes as quickly. But so for the last check-in, 77 people checked in.
Right.
So out of the original, let's say 270-ish people, 77 people checked in this time. So, not everybody's going to see a post. I think Instagram was angry at me because I made a post and I hadn't in a long time. But of those 77 people, and I'm going to take my notes now, of those 77, 46 are out. And 31 are still in. And that just blew me away. Even compared to the original number of about 270 people that joined, That's more than 10%
Yeah.
of all people that are still in by November, which is like almost a full year, of not buying, or 3/4 of a year of not buying fabric. So I already thought that was amazing. And then some of them specified which division they're still in. And I think this is where it gets very interesting. 12 of those 31 are in lightweight. 5 didn't specify their division, and I didn't check in, or get a reply soon enough.
Yeah.
And 14 are still in heavyweight.
Wow.
Couldn't believe there's 14 people, at least, of those that replied,
Yeah.
that went all year, and they didn't just not buy fabric, they bought nothing sewing related. So yeah, not counted in that roundup is me.
This is what we need to talk about. How's your challenge going on, Lisa?
Okay, so let me get comfortable for this part.
Yeah,
the big
exactly.
confession. Move my water glass out of the way because I'm going to have to show you the fabric. I know the listeners can't see it, but you can. So by the 2nd of November, when I did the check-in, everything was going so great. I had never done better before in the challenge. In the first year, I think I went until like May. The second year, maybe June. And then there was some kind of a sale. And I was like, I'm basically saving money, so I have to drop out. This year, it wasn't even a question for me. I'm not sure if it was like there's more people in the challenge, so I need to take it more seriously, or if it's because I had finally sorted my fabric. It was accessible. Like really, since I like sorted my fabric, and that was at the beginning of this year, I felt like I have it all, like I don't need to buy things. I can finally use what I have. So whatever it was, I was sailing so smoothly. I was in lightweight. I had already planned that I'm not going to like pre-shop and plan patterns and things. And I don't have that many patterns and notions. That's not as crazy as the fabric stash. So I've been in lightweight for a while, but I wasn't even tempted to look at fabrics. Not a problem.
But also, you've had the practice now, your third go. Like you've flexed some muscles by this point.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a lot of projects I was excited about. I also didn't get to sew that much this year in general. I had plenty of sewing time, but I actually slowed down even more during the last year. I used to try and sew faster because I thought I had to. And this year I was like, no, I like sewing slowly. I like testing things out. I don't rush through projects. So yeah, my fabric use is not super high. And if anything, it's going down the more I sew. And yeah, I was just going to be here till the end. Like, yeah, no question about it. And then I started making Christmas presents for everyone. You may remember that the pouches, I have them right here.
The pouches really show your perfectionist streak because they are perfection. The way you've got like a pink pouch with a mint zip or a mint pouch with a pink zip. It's just divine.
I mean, I have to give credit to those matching, of colors to my kids. They chose their own colors. But of course, I gave them, what I had available, which already kind of matches. But yeah, you can see part of my problem there too, of like, I need to have things just so, and but you can also see what I enjoy. I am now committed to making pouches for everyone for Christmas. First of all, I think it's great. Like everybody could use a pouch, put things in, toiletries, cables, chargers, whatever. Who wouldn't want a pouch? But also, I really enjoy making things again and again. I enjoy perfecting them, getting better and better, getting faster, sometimes slower, because now I'm adding extra steps that weren't there before. Yeah, I really like the meditative aspect of once you have it down, then you can just do it. I really sew because I like sewing. Sometimes I don't quite finish a project because that's done already. Like I like sewing. That's why I sew. So yeah, now everybody needs a pouch, and I've already made pouches for myself. Those were the testers, obviously, my 2 kids, and next is my husband. And I looked at the fabrics I have, and I had some good options. I had a jeans blue solid with a stripe. I had a jeans blue. I had a navy blue. That's both fine, right? And I was like, but I have this green striped fabric. And green is his favorite color. Green stripe just seemed too girly, like all over green, over the pouch. I want him to use this. I want him to actually take it to work, have his cables and his bits and bobs, in it, and not be like, this is sort of the pouch my wife made. I'll keep it at home, And so, I think before every fabric purchase, it's really important that you think about, do you have something that's maybe not your dream, material, but just as suitable? Like maybe the same weight, it's a different color. So go through that. And usually that will tell you, you do not need to make this purchase. For some reason, that didn't work for me this time. Because you can see I had perfectly valid alternatives. I had the exact fabric in other colors. I had it in a stripe, which would have been totally fine. And I was sitting there, I think for an hour, just thinking about my options, laying them out. And at that point, I was like, I just want to go see. I just want to go see real quick if they have the solid that matches the stripe that I have. Because I know they used to have those, but they've been selling them out, and they probably don't have it anymore.
They did, and now so do you. Hold that up. I'm screenshotting that. Hold it up with the stripe as well. There. She's smiling.
I spent another hour just having it in my basket and thinking do I really want to do this? This means I'm out. 4 weeks before the challenge is over for a fabric that I really cannot justify buying. I can't. I have plenty of options. And I was like, no, green is his color. His color is not blue. And I had to have it.
Wow.
But it gets worse. It gets worse.
Oh,
you can cut this out.
No,
that's my official reason in my head.
Okay.
But if I go deep, that's not the reason. He would have been fine with a navy pouch. He wouldn't have been crying, oh, but green is my favorite color. I wanted the family of pouches to look good together. It's the most ridiculous reason. When I held up the navy, imagine this being navy. Yeah, it just didn't go. And so, I don't know what to tell you. For the most ridiculous reason in the world, because these pouches will never live together, ever. They will be in their separate bags and places.
They're not going to be on a shelf together. Yeah. Oh, you're so funny.
I wanted it all to match. I'm not going to be like the beacon of wisdom that you may need, to tell you how to, curb all fabric buying temptations. But I do try. I do know where my faults lie. But I'm still, I went into this willingly as well. It wasn't even oops, now I did this. I was like, yes, I want to do this.
Yeah, but you're not going to then start hitting up every sale that you see advertised, are you?
Well, my plan was...
Tell me you haven't.
My plan was... It gets, pretty bad. My plan was to get 50 centimeter of this green.
Uh-huh.
I don't even need 50 centimeters. But I was like, okay, I'll get 50 centimeters, make the pouches. At that point, I was like, 50 centimeters. I do have 2 meters of the striped. Might as well get 2 meters of the solid. For future projects, Yeah, that's the first confession in that. I didn't just get what I needed. I got more. So that's going to be more stash, right? That's not planned for a specific project, just so I have the 2 matching fabrics together.
This is so funny.
So
This is like a weird confession booth.
It's practice what you preach, but then you do the complete opposite.
Did you buy anything else?
I wasn't going to. I blame this one on Teraya. Teraya, if you're listening, this is your fault. My friend Teraya was like, you did so well. You did so well. You came so far. She wasn't giving me grief for dropping out. She said, you resisted all those sales, like Black Friday, all the various sales during the year, really. And that got me thinking. There was this one fabric store that closed. or that is closing in Switzerland. And I've been resisting that one. I didn't even look at the website all year. She's selling away everything. And this is a nice store. Like, she only had nice stuff. So yeah, long story short, I went to have a look and I got a little bit of dead stock shirting, 40% off. I couldn't resist. Okay, I'm just going to tell you how much it is. It's about 12 meters.
You bought 12 meters!
Okay, this is again, this is the weirdest confession ever. So yeah, I used to when I was buying fabric, I buy a lot because I sew for myself and my 2 girls. And then one girl's dress, it's like 2.5 meters of fabric. So yeah, the one shirting is like 2 dresses. The other shirting is 2 dresses. And then the last one is about 1.5 meter of fabric. And that's going to be 2 shirts for my nephews, like summer shirts. That's the little. So yeah, lots of fails, lots of new like fabric, but specific projects in mind. But yeah, definitely confession booth time because I didn't need it. I wanted it. I wanted it because it was cheap now. I felt like, oh, this is basically a frugal purchase, right? I'm spending money, but it's such a good deal. And some projects in mind, but really not specific. So yeah, you have a laundry list here of basically fails.
I'm not sure what to say at this point.
For the avid listener, I would just like to describe Zoe's face right now. Throughout the episode, because we have video, she went from smiling, happy. She now has one hand on her head. She's holding her head. She doesn't know what to do with me. I'm just lucky I'm not getting. I'm lucky I'm not getting a yelling right now, right?
Oh my goodness. Well, okay. Can you promise me that you will use all those fabrics by the end of next year? It'll be 2024.
I'll try. They're definitely summer fabrics, so, I'm not going to do anything with them right now. I mean, the fabric for Alex, for my husband, I'm going to use right now. I already washed it, I pressed it, and I put it on this bolt. It's just 2 meters, so I also want to take good care of the fabrics, and all that. I'm going to hopefully cut into that today, actually.
Okay.
What I can promise you is that I don't intend to do any more purchases in the next 3.5 weeks till the end of the challenge. This was basically already what I plan to do once the challenge ends, is stock up on a couple of, fabrics that I have in mind, which I probably don't have to do anymore. My mom is getting me one of those fabrics that is on my wish list. So yeah, I don't plan to do any like shopping when the challenge ends in like the danger, time.
So tell me about this danger
yeah.
time, because there'll be people that have participated last year, or the one that I'm participating in currently that's about to finish, and then there is a gap, isn't there, of about 5-6 weeks before you sign up again. And I can imagine it would be very tempting to be like, right, let's go to town before I jump back on my horse.
So yeah, this is called the danger time. And it is a break between, it's called that now. It's not like from the beginning. As you know, everything, evolved. But we started calling it the danger time because it ends on December 31st. It doesn't start again for about 6 weeks. And nobody's going to ask you, or, you don't need to be accountable for that. Now, I think it's important to take a break so that we basically show ourselves like, yeah, what can I do when I'm on my own? Like, if nobody's watching, will I just revert sort of to my previous ways, or even get worse and just like make up for lost time? And then in the end, in the challenge as well, it's not like we actually have to explain ourselves to others. This is what we're doing the challenge for. So it's giving us a minute to pause in the challenge and be like, okay, is this working for me? Do I want to keep doing this? Am I going crazy? If you are going crazy shopping, then yeah, get back into the challenge as soon as possible for us to sort of see like how far did we get. And I think it's a good time to take a break because December 31st, we are all full of good resolutions, whether we're doing them actively or not. They're all around us. None of us are going to be like, oh, everybody's going to the gym. I'm going to go crazy with, fabric shopping. But it's a time of where we all like try and sort of do better, right? And the other thing, very like tangible, is hopefully we'll all have spent our, Christmas budgets. We have a lot of bills coming in for the beginning of the year, like yearly car bills, things like that. I don't have like that much spending money in January. I already went sort of overboard with Christmas. I have all these yearly bills. So that's my other hope, that having the gap in January helps us a bit, that we're not just like going completely crazy over, I don't know, 4th of July sales in the US, or like, Black Friday sales or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you want to ask me some questions about my challenge?
First of all, how do you work in a fabric store and even consider joining this challenge? That was my first question when I heard about you joining.
Okay, so I have worked there for 5 years now. 5 years in August, just gone. So I have been through a phase of being like, oh my goodness, look all this fabric. I never went bonkers. I never went wild because, I've never had the space or the budget anyway, let alone the kind of sustainability aspect.
But you probably get a discount, right?
Yes, a very, very healthy 50% off.
Sounds so dangerous.
It is, and it was. And so I did get stuff when it came through that I really loved. And most of it I used, but I still have some. But what I learned over that time is that there is always more fabric. There is always more fabric coming through, being listed, going on the website. Sometimes their fabrics are ones that they always stock. For example, they have these really beautiful eco-enzyme washed linens, which I adore, and they have some gorgeous colours. They always have those. Every summer they get those back in. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to worry about, like, I must hoard 4 meters of each. And then when there is other ones, like dead stock ones coming through, beautiful prints, which are quite unusual, I've learnt that you can look at those, you can appreciate those. You don't always have to own those, Like, I don't have to own every painting that I've loved. I don't have to own every postcard that I've seen that's been cute, Like, it's okay just to be like, yeah, that's really nice. Mm-hmm. Those beautiful colours, that's really cool. So I've learnt that. Sometimes some things, they really, really sing to you. And you're like, oh, that's so me. But then you have to think, like, does that suit my complexion? Is that going to look good on my body? That's another kind of filter. And often the answer is no. Like, I don't look good in kind of like more muted tones. I have to be quite careful what the base colour of a fabric it is if it's a print. And just know that a fabric that takes your heart, that has got the right tone or the right collection of colours, will come along, and that would be a better, because I have bought some of those other fabrics and I have made those garments and I don't wear them as much because they don't make me feel particularly good. They make me feel washed out or whatever when they're on my body. So there's that. I almost did this challenge because I work in a fabric shop, but because most of the time I don't deal directly with the fabric. I'm not touching the fabric every day. My main job there is ordering sewing patterns and haberdashery and managing the stock of that.
Which sounds like so much fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah, it's great. It's great to know what's going on out there. It's great to see trends. It's great to discover new designers. So I don't touch the fabric all the time, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I go and help cut orders. Like at the moment, we're still kind of drowning in Black Friday orders. So the last couple of weeks I only work 1 day a week there as well. I've been cutting orders and looking at the fabrics again. And when I've been doing that before this challenge, I spend my whole time just thinking about, what would I make with that fabric? What would I like? And when you do see so much fabric all the time, my mind was just constantly going like, what could I make? What would I like to make? What would I make? What could I make with that? On and on and on and on and on. And I wanted to be part of the challenge because I just wanted to quieten that bit of brain to refocus on, as we were saying before, like those lovely bits of fabric that I had bought before, which I had a plan for, and actually do those. And also those bits where like I bought some fabric, I had a plan for them, I made that plan, but there was still like a meter left or something. I've got lots of that, like small amounts of stuff that I love that deserves to be used. So I really, and also I don't have much space, like a physical space.
Is that your fabric closet behind you?
No. This has got like my patterns.
Yeah.
It's got my daughter's stuff in. I have a very small yarn stash. I have some yarn in there. This over here is such a horrible mess. These are all scraps, so they're sorted by type.
Oh, but that's an organized mess. I love that kind of mess.
But it's fairly organized, because I really spent
like
a lot of time. So I've got a box of.
We can't go into this. We're going to do a half hour just like looking at. Right. And then you're going to want to see mine, and
exactly. Yeah, we'll do this another time. So I just wanted to quieten that bit of my brain, and it really worked. It's really worked. I wasn't buying loads of stuff anyway before. I actually had a limit. I think I only bought 6 pieces of fabric last year. It was just, I just wanted to quieten my brain and use what I had and refocus on what I had and honour the resources I already had and I already spent money on.
Like getting something new is basically not an option anymore.
I'm not going to do it again next year. I'm not going to sign up again, which is not to say I won't do it in the future, but there are some things that I want, like there are some what I consider to be wardrobe staples that I need to replace, and that's not things that I can do with secondhand fabric. I want to make some black jeans. I want to make a black pair of dungarees, just some real basics like that my wardrobe really, I don't want to use the word need, because obviously I don't need, I will live without them, but I would really appreciate and it would allow me more access to the rest of my wardrobe, because I have some stuff that like just doesn't look good with the blue things that I've got anyway. So but I am going to go back to limiting. I'm probably going to do another 6 pieces of fabric a year of new fabric. If I see a curtain or something that looks fun in a charity shop, I'll get that, to use. But it's got to be a timely thing. It can't live in there. It's got to have that movement that I was talking about, I've got to buy it for a project, buy what I need, not extra just in case, and it's got to be used in a reasonable time frame.
I love that as a goal because, I love that you are not coming back to the challenge.
Oh, really?
Even though we will miss you dearly, but that is the goal, that you use the challenge to get through your stash. And I think your stash was not as outrageous as others are. And I feel like you've really picked through it and used everything you could to the last centimeters of your elastic, probably.
The elastic is dire. That situation is bad.
I mean, you could say, okay, I'll buy all these fabrics between January and February. I'll join again. But chances are you would make mistakes. And like you have this goal, you will limit yourself and not just buy anything you want next year. But you probably want to plan it out a bit and buy it then when you need it so that it's the right thing. And I think this is like, if anything, this is like the challenge done well. Like you've done the challenge. You're almost graduating from the challenge. You can do it by yourself now. You're not going to cram and panic shop in the off weeks. You've trained yourself, not just because of the challenge, obviously, but you know that you can buy then more deliberately and just the things you need.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, you can always come back and you're always welcome.
If my brain is like then going bonkers again, then definitely, I will definitely do that. But you're right. Like I think for me, I'm actually going to continue the challenge until the 13th of February because I thought it was a year.
Nice.
So I want to kind of now complete a year. And
nice.
I've definitely got enough things to keep me going, like projects on the go already.
Perfect.
That's fine. But yeah, you're right. I didn't want to then be like, okay, right, I need to get some black denim. I need to get blah, blah, blah. And then be like, come October in the year, I was like, oh, actually, like, that's not quite the right way. If I'd had a bit more time to think,
Yeah, and then you build a stash again because, now the weight actually wasn't perfect. And you thought that was good in January, but in August, that wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah,
and you're back to building a stash of accidental or, plans gone wrong,
Yeah.
So, I think this is really good. And, I think some of us may need the challenge year after year. some of us may need to join for 1 year or even just a few weeks. Like, it's so important that everybody just, I don't know, spends a bit of time thinking about, is my fabric shopping a problem or not? Do I need to, or do I just want the community aspect from it, And yeah, I was really sad when you told me already before you're not coming back next year. And first I was like, no, we're losing Zoe. But then I was like, no, this is a good thing.
I'll still be checking in. I'll still be championing everyone, and I'll still be checking the hashtag and commenting and cheering along when and where I can.
Excellent.
I'm not going to turn my back on everyone.
See,
yeah.
No, I think that's wonderful.
So, how can people sign up to it, and where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on Instagram, but you were saying in a conversation you had once, people can participate in Me Made May without being on Instagram. I mean,
Absolutely.
Technically, just do it, and you're part of it. If you want to connect to us, if you want to connect with the community, if you want a starting number, etc., you have to just check my Instagram, which will be in the show notes. It's not even worth saying it. It's Miss Tashley. I think there's a period in there somewhere, but who knows? And then you leave a comment on a sign-up post, which may or may not be up, in a sort of timely manner. And just let me know that you want to be in, and then you'll be in. And if I ignore your comment for weeks, don't worry. I'll get around to it, Just don't buy fabric in the meantime. And reach out to other participants. You can find those. You used to be able to find them under the hashtag. Now, that's a bit jumbled chronologically. So you can either check my post, see who's there, check Zoe's post where she, on her 2 accounts, where she talks about, people will comment, say, oh, I'm doing it. And just like reach out to people. I think that's the best way to just, connect with others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk to you forever. This has been so fun. I would love to do another conversation with you, maybe in a year's time or something, so we can see like what's changed a year later,
That'd be great, and we can see how you did without the challenge, and if you need to come back again for the next year.
Let's do that. We're scheduling that in. That's happening for sure. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been so good. Thank you for showing me all the many countries you almost live in.
Thanks so much for having me on, Zoe. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!